Welcome back, Stephen. Stephen
Thank,
Downs.
thank you very much, Adam. How are you doing?
Good. I'm really excited for this episode today. This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a special one, and it's been a while coming. It's good to be recording again.
Yeah, agreed. And a special shout out to Dayton Quarterly, who's probably off farming somewhere or taking care of his sheep in Norway. Dayton, this episode is thanks to you. Dayton is a good friend of mine, and friend of ours actually,
He's my
and
friend now too.
he
How dare you?
he is your friend too. Dayton recommended that we talk a little bit about Joanna Macy, who recently passed away in mid-July. I want to say July 19th of this year in Berkeley at the age of 96. Um, I don't think we can do her justice in this episode, but we'll certainly try to. We hope to honor her life and her legacy and everything that she did. Joanna Macy, gosh, how to even start? So, for those who don't know her, Joanna Macy she was a scholar, she's an activist, a spiritual teacher, very well versed in not only Buddhist philosophy, but systems theory, ecology. She did so much. She did missionary work. She worked with Tibetan refugees. Um, she actually worked and studied with Erwin Laszlo. For those who are into this world, Erwin Laszlo was one of the preeminent systems theorists, and Erwin Laszlo taught that everything is interconnected, and actually spoke about the role consciousness plays in interconnection. And it's interesting, if you look back at Joanna Macy's life, it's amazing to see the evolution of her work, even from her early days studying with folks like Erwin Laszlo, the religious studies, her dissertation. Actually, I have a note here. I took some notes about her. Her dissertation was called Mutual Causality in Buddhism and General Systems Theory. And this is like in the 1970s. It's amazing to see, like, right from the get-go, the threads of Buddhism, interconnectedness, her care for systems of nature, and her compassion for all of that. It was very evident from early on. And I think another huge aspect to what she's known for is helping people feel. And what I mean by that is when we truly see what's happening in the world, at least in the context of nature and the environment and our interconnectedness with planet Earth, with Mother Earth, I think it's natural to feel a deep sense of grief and despair to see what's happening. And Joanna really helped us connect with that grief and allowed us to feel deeply. And from that sense of feeling arose compassion for a lot of people, I feel. It certainly did to me as I really dived deep into her work. I probably think that, in addition to the understanding of interconnectedness, is one of her biggest legacies. What do you think when you think of Joanna Macy?
Wow, well, you already covered all of it, so let's see how much can I repeat.
High level.
When I think of Joanna Macy, I really do think of, for me, the voice of spiritual ecology. And not just spiritual ecology, but just a spiritual connection in general. Joanna uses Buddhist terminology and, ideas from both Pali and Tibetan Buddhism, but they're fundamental truths because she ties it directly to our felt sense of self as a person in a world, which is really special because so many times it's so easy to disassociate spiritual practice from our felt sense of self. And in fact, I'm certainly guilty of this, and I'm sure many others are. There's a sense of, there can be an attempt to kind of tear apart the self, tear apart the aspects of the self into these composite parts that we have to understand and analyze. And I think one of the gifts that Joanna brought was that she really allowed this self, that allowed us to be as we are and feel what we feel without having to conceptualize it, without having to overly analyze it, and still understand that what we feel is a piece of a larger puzzle. And so it's, for me, her work is a really special embodied reframing of the spiritual path of awakening, stripping away a lot of the mental concepts that typically go along with walking a spiritual path, and especially something like Buddhism, which is pretty concept heavy to begin with. So I think of just an amazing spiritual teacher who happened to teach through the lens of ecology.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like for a lot of people, she helped us understand we are not alone. We're not solitary individuals on a cold, uncaring planet, but really deeply interconnected with the fabric of all things around us.
Yeah.
Even going so far as to see this entire world as a single organism, a single being, and we are facets or part of that. For me, it's a profound shift in sense of identity, self, a sense of self.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a total shift. And how do I want to say this? It's not about having the right concept of self. This is what I think it's so special. It's about feeling, literally, really just feeling what you actually feel about the world, and without concepts. And I think, she uses certain questions. She uses the ecological framework. So she talks a lot about, kind of corporate expansionism and using the world as a resource purely for profit rather than having a relationship to it that's outside of that. And I think that when you really, for a lot of people, and certainly the people that relate to her work, when you strip away those kind of concepts of what should I feel, what's the right way to feel, a lot of people find, and I've found, that what's left is this just heartbreak. And, one side of it is heartbreak, but the other side of that is love. And, this is a question that I learned, I think, in Landmark, and it really changed the way that I view problems in my life. They were talking about when things break down, when we have a problem. Well, why is it a problem? Someone else doesn't have a problem with that. Why do you have a problem with that? And it's not about looking for the particular answer to your particular situation. The realization is the problem is that you care. The fundamental problem, I'm making air quotes, it's not a problem. The reason that this is an issue is because you care about it. This happens to be something that you care about. And so you go right from problem consciousness, this idea that this is a problem, to, oh my God, I care so deeply about this. And that is an incredible shift. And Joanna, her work is just amazing at bringing me into that sense of heartbreak about the trajectory that we're on right now, and completely obliterating life on our planet. And I don't mean, I just want to be clear, I don't want to get stuck in concepts here. Like, I don't want to get into like, oh, well, is global warming really happening, or is like it another ice age? Or I don't want to get it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, we are literally obliterating species. I'm not talking about the end result, net 10,000 years, net 100,000 years. I'm talking about right now, we are obliterating the earth. And that feels like heartbreak to me.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yes,
and
it
I
does.
think if you don't rationalize our relationship to the world, like, oh well, these things happen, or yeah, we're humans and we prey on animals. Like if you don't rationalize behavior, you look at like, no, we're just obliterating it, and it's hard, it's devastating. And but that leads me to so much love. The reason it's heartbreaking is because I love the world so much and I love others so much. And it takes one out of the sense of individual self, and like you were saying, of individual self in a cruel and unloving world. And I'm filled with the sense that the world is just love. The world is love. And it's relationship back and forth. And that sensitivity that we get when we start feeling this it's a feedback cycle. It tells us where we're out of balance. It tells us where those soft spots are, where the tension is that we need to look at and lean into a little bit more. And it happens right away as soon as you get into her work. This isn't something that, you need to spend years and years meditating to try and get. A lot of times I've talked about meditation as this process that takes some time for a lot of people, that you can meditate for months or years and not have a breakthrough. You can do Joanna Macy's work for 30 minutes and really feel the core of awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. It reminds me of a quote of hers that I very, very much love. She said, "The heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe."
Yeah.
And I think it's worthwhile just like really letting those words sink in. The heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe. F- For me, it's yeah, it comes to back to compassion and love. It hurts so much to see the suffering of others because there's care, because there's love. Otherwise, it wouldn't affect me. I remember in the days after my dad died, and I think I shared this with you. I went to I was in Istanbul at the time, and I was still processing his death, and we went to this mall, and it was a huge mall. There were people everywhere, um, all different ages, moms with strollers, toddlers walking around, old people with their walkers, and kids running. And it just made me realize like each and every one of those people is going to lose someone because it's just a natural part of humanity. There are people we love that die. And I know this is not ecology related per se, but the lesson I learned was, oh my gosh, there's so much suffering in the world. There's so much suffering, and I felt my heart break open because for the first moment, perhaps in my life, I really felt the immensity of the suffering of humanity. And I think with Joanna's work, I feel that even on a broader level with the planet, with the natural world, with the species that are many have numbers in the single digits before their species are about to get completely lost to time. And there's this deep sense of, my gosh, what's happening here? And then like this deep grief, this deep grief. And the other thing too that I want to speak to, at least is what occurs to me, the suffering that's happening is so widespread and so global. I personally sometimes feel a sense of hopelessness. Like, what can I do? What can I possibly do?
Yeah.
How can I possibly have an impact on a problem that's so widespread and so huge? What possible impact can I make? And one thing that um, Joanna talks about repeatedly is actually she speaks to something called the Shambala Prophecy, and that we can become Shambhala warriors. And maybe it's worthwhile for me to speak to the prophecy a little bit. The prophecy comes from a book, or comes from an initiation, Buddhist initiation called the Kala Chakra Tantra. I have a book here, but it's not a book per se. It's a ritual that Buddhists perform, but it has to do with the wheel of time and understanding. I'm not going to do the Kala Chakra Tantra any justice, but the aspect
Keep going
within
at it. You're gonna get it.
the aspect within it that I want to talk about is this idea that there is a world, there's a kingdom called Shambhala, which is not a physical place. It's a state of mind characterized by peace, mutual respect, and interconnection. And where we are right now is a time of great destruction and turmoil, where humanity's destructive tendencies is literally creating vast devastation. And that there will be a time when individual people, ordinary people, can recognize that devastation and choose differently. And they can choose and hold an intention to bring about inner peace. They can choose to have love, hold compassion in their heart, as well as insight into the nature of our interconnectedness. And that's, again, the two wings of Buddhism, love and insight, or love and wisdom, compassion and wisdom. And Joanna said, for those who step up and hold that compassion and insight, they are Shambhala warriors. And they will bring about this new kingdom in the face of such devastation. And so that's, for me, that's what I take from Joanna, that if we were to apply this prophecy, assuming that we are in that time now, and it certainly seems that way, that's what Joanna suggests, that we are at the, in the times that the Shambhala prophecy speaks of, then we can each become a Shambhala warrior. And that's how we do it. We hold compassion and we have insight into the interconnectedness of the planet.
Yeah.
Did I do the prophecy justice?
And you done all right. No, I think you did good.
I'm doing all right.
But it really, I want to tie it back into, can you read the quote again that you had shared right before you shared that? Because to me, they're very related, and I want to link.
Yeah. Her quote was, "The heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe."
Yeah, thank you. God, it's so powerful. It's like
yeah.
Oh God. It's, if you to really take that seriously, the quote, when you really just feel that grief and you don't try to change it. And I think that's very important. And so we've talked about grief a lot. Both you and I have. And to me, grief is the central emotion, one of the central human emotions. And the way through grief to, quote unquote, to healing, to wholeness, is because grief is a sense of being broken, that something's broken. And the way to wholeness is not through changing or removing grief, it's through feeling grief fully. And because what emerges when you feel grief fully is love. That's the access point. And so, when Joanna Macy talks about the prophecy of the Shambhala warrior and talks about how, it's ordinary individuals, I think is really a key insight into that. And the way I relate to it is, you'll know that you're on the right track if you can feel that grief and still feel a deep sense of love without being consumed by anger. I think that there are a lot of people that feel that grief very deeply, but the output is anger. They think that the solution to that grief is to be enraged and to attack. And Joanna Macy makes it really clear that the outcome of whatever is going on right now is not settled. And that's a part of the Shambala Prophecy, is that, and we will try to share, we will definitely share in the link below Joanna's interpretation of the prophecy. And we'll try and play it at the end of this episode as well. And one of the key things is that the outcome isn't certain. Grief doesn't get healed by knowing that everything will be okay. Grief is just grief. And when you really just feel it and let it take you over, there's no need to be angry. You can just be in grief. And what tends to emerge is this incredibly tender heart. And whereas you could feel the grief of the entire world, you can also love the entire world. Exactly the way it is. You can love all of the suffering in the world. And I think for me, that's a true mark of knowing that you're starting to get what it means to be a Shambhala warrior in this prophecy. And I think that that's what Joanna was trying to get to. And I want to take it to the next, move on from this and now go to,
Well, before you do, I just want
Mhm.
to say I've once heard that the definition of spiritual progress is the ability to hold greater and greater paradox.
Mm.
I've once heard
Mhm.
that, and I feel like you're tapping into it. Like, can you hold a deep sense of grief
Yeah.
and profound love and compassion
Yeah.
at the same time?
Yeah. Thank you. That's that's totally true. I agree with that. And so, okay, so we're maybe you're following along and you get it. Something's clicking. Yes, you can feel the grief fully and you can feel the love for the world as it's suffering fully. But what do we do? What do we do? Because it's not just necessarily, oh great, I just feel it. And I'm just a passive sort of doormat. Not even doormat's the wrong word, because that's in the kind of the attitude of, someone who's getting walked on or whatever you want to say. But it's Joanna Macy really talks about how the action that comes out of this comes from love. It doesn't come from, you can have, there can be anger too. There can be aspects of anger and fury and rage, but it can't be because they're the bad guys over there. Because this is the whole system. It's not just us, the good guys versus the bad guys. That's not what Joanna Macy is talking about. When you feel that love, you'll be motivated to take action naturally. That love will produce action on its own, and the loving action that you take will be in the highest alignment for you for you. I don't want to say more. You don't have to individually solve all of the problems of the world. You just have to take the next step in loving action that inspires you. And I think that's really important, because it's not about going, okay, I feel the deep sense of love and I feel the deep sense of grief, and now I need to conceptualize what the best way to take action is according to some sort of methodology or outlook on life. Our hearts naturally know how to love people. The heart does not need the mind to tell it how to love. And so I think that's really key, is to allow that grief and that love to inspire action out of feeling, not out of concept.
Uh-huh. Again, this is another quote from Joanna, because I
Let's
love
go.
quotes. Because it speaks to, like, I want her words to shine.
Yeah, of
here.
course.
So in light of what you're saying, she said, "You don't need to do everything. Do what calls your heart. Effective action comes from love. It is unstoppable, and it is enough."
Mm. Yeah.
And I love that she ended it that way. Do what calls your heart. Effective action comes from love. It's unstoppable and it is enough. As you were talking, I have, this picture I have of my desktop on my desktop is of a huge valley, a mountain valley with trees. And as you were talking, it sort of dawned on me, going back to that comment that I made about feeling, what can I do? That sense of hopelessness. What can I do in the face of such travesty, global travesty? And I think about the trees are essentially en masse, they are the lungs of the planet, right? They inhale carbon dioxide and they exhale oxygen. And we are the counterpart to that, which is so beautiful to think about. The plants in general, like they are the counterpart lungs to all life. And if a single tree took on the job of having to purify the world's carbon dioxide, it would be a task that was insurmountable, and it would create despair and maybe a sense of hopelessness at the impossibility of the task.
Yeah.
But then you just look at a tree, at how beautifully grounded it is, reaching up to the sky and doing its job. And I'd like to think that each tree does its job of breathing out of love.
Yeah.
Completely present in the moment, completely intertwined and connected with its role on the planet. And so when I look at a tree, all of that comes at once into me. That when I act out of love, I'm completely and deeply in harmony with the life that is all around me. And the actions that come from this being, Adam, in this part of the planet and in this world with the people that are around me, in the relationships that Adam is a part of, is exactly what needs to happen in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that looks like, an act of kindness, and sometimes that looks like silence. And sometimes it looks like taking some sort of inspired dynamic action like Joanna did and teaching this to as many people as would listen. And sometimes it doesn't. And all of those, as if they're inspired by that sense of felt love inspired by inspiration. They're inspired by if they're inspired, they're the right action. And it's not about finding the most utilitarian action through concepts. It's about staying in the feeling and letting the feeling inspire you to action in the moment. Because sometimes you won't feel the grief. Sometimes you won't feel the love. And it's not about having the right feeling. It's not about, it's not about having the right feeling. And this is why I think it's, we've been talking for a little bit now, and I want to actually dive into how this relates to awakening, because Joanna talks about awakening to this, this larger sense of self, and dissolving the individual sense of self. And that's, she does it really well. And I want to take it more into like Adam and Stephen land. And,
there's a land?
There's the land.
There's an Adam.
There's the land.
So there's like the pure land for Buddhists, right?
Yeah, that's
there's
not
like
what we got.
Heaven, and then we have Adam and Stephen.
Adam's exactly.
God knows what's there.
Yeah, not ready to send that invites. For so long, even after I had some of the like initial most profound awakening experiences, for so long I still thought that waking up was about feeling good, and it was about having the right answers. If I just had the answer to this question, I would finally wake up. If I just felt good all the time, surely waking up means that you're in bliss constantly. Surely that's what because all those cool stories we read about these great awakened beings and how blissed out they are, and like these magical powers that they have. And it's so sexy, that version of awakening. But
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But what Joanna's pointing us to is that awakening just looks like really honestly feeling what's there right now and being inspired by it. It's not about having the right concepts in your mind. Sure, there's work that we do. I recently, we had an episode where I talked about how to turn the mind into this kind of sword and to cut, and that's a part of it. But you're not cutting concepts to get to new concepts. You're removing them. And then it's not about feeling good. It's about just being able to feel freely without pushing it away or pulling good feelings towards you. That to me is really what awakening has come to mean. And it's completely the opposite of some, pie in the sky version that I heard about and tried to reach when I was for most of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes me think of something that, again, you'll hear for those listening to this. You'll hopefully, if we find out a way to have Joanna Macy's interview and interpretation of the Shambala Prophecy at the end of our recording here, you'll hear this. But Joanna speaks to the prophecy in that the weapons of destruction, the weapons of mass destruction, when this prophecy comes about, are manomaya, which is to say mind-made. Manas means mind in Sanskrit, and maya means to be formed of. It also means illusion, which I think is fascinating if you incorporate the deeper meaning of that word. But so manomaya, like the illusions of the mind or forms of the mind. So the weapons are mind-made, which then Joanna says means something very powerful. It means they can be undone by the mind. If they're made by the mind, they can be unmade by the mind. And that, to me, is key. For me, that was a super empowering message. Because, like I said, it's very often, I often I notice there's a tendency in me to feel a sense of despair when I look at all the terrible things happening in the world. And it's not just ecologically speaking. I'm talking about financial systems. I'm talking about the level of corruption in politics. It's terrible. It's terrible. But when I go back to, okay, what action can I take? The tempting solution is there's something out there. I need to say the right words. I need to take the right bodily, physical actions. I need to do something. But really, the action is at the level of the mind, heart, mind, emotions, and thoughts. We go within, is what I think Joanna speaks to. These weapons were made by the mind, and they can be unmade by the mind. That's super empowering for me. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It means the solution's like in your hand. It's within you.
Absolutely. I think this gets into a bit of a question of what is a weapon, right? Because you could look at the weapon and say, like, okay, Joanna, for example, talks a lot about nuclear devastation. And so you could say, well, the weapon is literally a nuclear bomb. And okay, it's mind-made because a mind actually made it. So it can be literally unmade. We could figure out a way with our minds to unmake it. But I also think that the weapons of the mind that are made by the mind are mental tendencies to put things into categories of good and bad and judge things and attack things. And those to me are also weapons that are mind made. And when she says that, I took her maybe the meaning of, okay, yeah, we could find a way to denuclearize the world and not live under this constant threat of nuclear obliteration. But also that the entire idea of self and other can be undone by the mind, which is something that we've talked about here in a lot of our recent episodes, which is that, the ego, the mind, is the thing that ultimately undoes itself. And that to me, I think is another fun, cute little level of meaning to such a powerful prophecy. It's not just about
probably
it's not just about the nuclear bomb.
level.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. You know, the level of disarming nuclear bombs is also a fantastic level to work at. We should do that too. We should use our mind to find those solutions too.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I think you have to. Right? Anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to share that what do we mean by weapon?
Well, actually, this is great. I love this. That kind of lit me up too.
God, I love it when I get your approval.
You have my approval always. Well, something that really lit me up in what you just said was something that I see often with activists. Okay, if the weapon of the mind going into this sort of level that you're talking about is the mental tendency to attack, to project and blame. Let's go straight to a very common tendency is we see the devastation of the planet. Why does this happen? Why is the Amazon being destroyed? Because fundamentally it's for profits, corporate greed, okay? Corporate greed. That's happening on a person-to-person level. It's not just the corporation, right? The CEO, the C-suite, the board of directors, they're beholden to the shareholders. The shareholders want profit, right? Then it does not matter how that profit is achieved for that particular mindset.
Yeah.
And so it's natural for an activist to demonize that group, to hate. And, just go on YouTube. You can watch the videos of the vitriol, the hatred that some activists feel. I mean, I don't want to.
I felt it.
Point out. Yeah, I mean, really, you can feel it, and you just watch one of that famous Greta Thunberg video. I think where she speaks to the UN, and you could see that her face getting contorted, and she said, "How you should be ashamed of yourselves," when she's speaking to the leaders. I have nothing against Greta Thunberg, but I'm just saying, like, that tendency to really hate, that's a weapon.
Yeah.
That's a mind weapon. The only thing that comes from that level of hatred, when you see the other person as an enemy, is destruction. Destruction comes from that weapon.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if an activist goes there, if he goes there or she goes there and attacks internally, even at the level of their own mind, they are, I mean this with all due respect, but they are the same. They are doing the same thing. They're utilizing the same weapon that their quote-unquote enemies are using.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel this is so important when we say to undo that weapon. It always starts first with yourself.
Yeah.
So the question is to the listeners out there, is there, and I'll own this too, is there an aspect of my life where I am hating another person, where I am projecting blame onto another person, where I'm not taking ownership, but rather saying the terrible aspects of my life are because of this other person or this other situation.
Yeah.
That mental tendency is what we're speaking about and what Joanna is referring to, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from the, I guess, and I think Joanna talks about this, but I'm not as fluent in Joanna's language. So I'm going to kind of rephrase it in my own language. And it's very related to what you were saying, is that, if we, and this is through my own experience, as well as kind of the fundamental understanding of like Buddhism, right? Especially Tibetan Buddhism. The fundamental understanding is that we're all already Buddhas. That's the highest teaching. So if we're all already Buddhas, we're covering it up with something. We're covering it up with delusion. And so the path is to remove delusion. And what is the delusion? The delusion is the hate, the anger, the self and other. I mean, we just did an episode on Zen, and there's the Diamond Sutra, which is this amazingly profound sutra about there's no self and other. And when you, in my experience, in myself and seeing it in others, when you have gone to those parts and to yourself that hate and let them dissolve and ask, why do I hate? Because it's the same question that we started with. Why is there a problem? Hate is that we don't want to feel hate. No one likes feeling hate. No one likes hating anything. There's a reason it's uncomfortable when we lash out, because we're trying to get rid of the feeling. And we think that if I express this feeling, it's going to make things better for me at a feeling level. You can break this down into the way the nervous system functions. I'm not going to do that. So, but when you see in yourself that what's underneath the hate that you feel is love, is a desire to love and be loved, you can start understanding that every one of us is the same. The people that hate, the same people that are unaware, but the people that hate, they all just want love. That the love is fundamental to me. And so when you see this is what transforms it from becoming a us versus them, I'm going to hate you back because that's going to solve the problem. When you see that the people that are the quote unquote bad guys are just versions of yourself that haven't yet seen that all they want is love, then you can be the target of their hate and still love them, because you know that the hate isn't real. The hate is just a lashing out and a feeling because they don't feel loved. And I think that is what really lets you be in action, is when you can say, yes, you're just like me. I know what it's like to hate too. And I know what's underneath it. And I'm going to be here and I'm going to let you hate me as long as it takes for you to get that. And I think that's so fundamental to actually unmaking the weapons of the mind. Because that's the fundamental weapon of the mind.
You touched upon such an important topic there. It reminds me of a very well-known quote now, that all behavior is either an expression of love or a call for love.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see it in that frame, then we see the people who are hating and lashing out and attacking or devastating the planet, or, looking at their own self-interests. It's a call for love. They don't know it on a conscious level, but like you just pointed out, the deep, deep inner drive is they don't feel loved, and they're calling out for love, and they do not know how to do it. And so they do it in a maladaptive way.
Yeah. Yeah, we create defense structures. We create these structures to stop feeling it.
Yeah.
Because it hurts, and we don't know how to be with the hurt, which comes back to the Joanna's fundamental teaching of the work that reconnects, is you have to feel what's going on I love what Joanna says. She says, don't let people pathologize what you feel. There's a tendency to say, like, if you just break down from grief at the thought of the world being destroyed, that there's you're crazy. Like you need to get yourself together. And Joanna is saying, you don't. You shouldn't. Don't let it become a pathology. Just feel it fully. And if you feel like you're going to break, then feel like you're going to break. Don't qualify it with a pathology. And that is so key to breaking through and finding that love underneath it, is to not stop the process with the mind, not to pathologize it. And to be okay. If other people think that something's wrong with you, that's okay. That's okay. Don't stop feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's so subtle. It's so subtle. Even there's not pathologizing it, but there's also don't rationalize it.
Yeah, I think that's what
Just
she
be
meant.
with-
But you could definitely a lighter version of pathologizing is like,
Yeah.
well, you have a diagnosis, and rationalizing,
Right,
you have to
yeah.
stop and like reflect and make it is it a good, is
Like,
it bad?
you don't need to give it a reason
Yeah.
for being.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of this idea of what we talked about, zero resistance to what is. Zero. And if what is grief and terror, and I think terror also too applies to, the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right? Are we going to see the end of the world? And not to be doom and gloom, but like if that's the emotion that's arising, then zero resistance to that.
Yeah.
Be with that. Be with that. I think these mind weapons that we're speaking to, I could probably go so far as to say arise from an inability to be with what is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Inability to be with
agree.
Yeah. It's like I cannot be with the suffering that I feel on an unconscious level, and so I will do XYZ defensive mechanisms, attacks, projections to run away from it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, I would express it and say that just like Joanna Macy breaks apart this small sense of self and gets us in touch with feeling this larger self, which is the ecological world, the entire ecological system, that breaks apart the sense of self. And I think it's important to, when we start to get into this deep, deep feeling world, to understand that the feeling is not us either. The feeling is just a feeling. And it's not, this comes back to the pathologizing, but this is one of the things that has stopped me for a long time, is that the feeling means something. The feeling means something about me. And the feeling doesn't mean anything about me. It's just a feeling. And it's Joanna Macy, the way, if my understanding is corrected, I'm not unbelievably widely read on Joanna, I'm trying to do her justice, is that feeling is what tells us something's out of balance. We use that feeling to feel what's out of balance. So pay attention to it, to feel it deeply, but not use it as it means something about me. But it's natural to feel it. It's also natural to feel it, but it doesn't mean something's wrong with you for feeling it. So that goes back to not pathologizing and not letting other people pathologize it, and not pathologizing yourself. And just to understand, like, yeah, terror, like, there's not something wrong with you if you feel these things. It means you're deeply connected to what's going on in the world.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd like to
You got another
share
quote from me?
another
Oh,
quote.
thank God.
Yeah. And this is a little bit a lighter quote. To be alive in this beautiful, self-organizing universe, to participate in the dance of life with senses to perceive it, lungs that breathe it, organs that draw nourishment from it, is a wonder beyond words.
Wow.
Joanna, she exuded such deep reverence for life. I've never met her, obviously, in person, but thus far, after reading her work, watching videos of her, watching the passion with which she speaks, there's this great YouTube video of a speech that she gave at the Bioneers conference. Actually, she, from what I gathered, gave a talk at that conference several times. She is so passionate, so fierce and fiery in her call to action, it's very clear that it does not come from hate, but it comes from a deep love and cherishing. And like I said, a reverence for life.
Yeah.
All around her.
Yeah.
It's a wonder beyond words. I liked how she put that.
It's, when you feel without resisting, and you have this movement, like I think I'm going to try and do a Nisargadatta quote here. He said, wisdom tells me I'm nothing, love tells me I'm everything. In between is where my life is. And to me, this is that.
Wait, say that again. Say that again. It's so good.
Wisdom tells me I'm nothing. Love tells me I'm everything. In between the two, my life flows. This is that you have moments of deep understanding and moments of deep feeling love. And between those two are all sorts of experiences. And the point isn't to stop the flow of like I've said before in this episode, it's not about having the right experience. It's about letting experience flow, feeling, thought, whatever, flow unimpeded. And I think what Jordan is pointing to, if I could, I don't want to say bastardize it, but put it in my own words, is that when you stop fighting what is and you really start to feel these feelings deeply, after a while there could be a sense of ecstasy at feeling them. Even the pain, there's an ecstasy that comes, like, isn't it amazing that we get to be alive? Isn't it amazing that we get to feel this deeply? And yes, sometimes it's heartbreaking and sometimes it's amazing. And isn't this moment that we get to share, isn't this just incredible?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I feel that in your sharing. That's so precious. It's so amazing. Wow. There's so much to say about Joanna. I think
feel like we can
she's
get on
touched
but
she's touched so many lives. She really has, and she will continue to touch lives with her work and her expression, and her life really is a testament to someone who is living in the flow, who lived in such a way that her actions came from a place of deep caring and deep love, and amazingly demonstrated the ability to take profound philosophical truths, at least within the Buddhist tradition, and very much apply it to the modern world and the modern troubles that we appear to have.
yeah.
Well, I guess what I'd like to close with, again, maybe another quote, but also it's a call to action for those listening. And we're going to have I think it's about an 8-minute clip. If we're somehow unable to add the clip at the end of this video or audio, please go to the show notes, click on the YouTube link. It'll be there as well, and watch this for yourself. So here's the quote. If the world is to be healed, it will be by ordinary people. People whose love for this life is even greater than their fear. And so in that respect, I would say, let us love. Let us show up individually in our own unique way, in a way that is our own expression of love, and let our hearts be open.
Perfect. I have nothing else to add to that.
Well, thank you all. And once again, thank you to our friend Dayton. And thank you, most importantly, to Joanna and for her life and for her legacy.
Incredible gratitude to Joanna and what she's given this world.
I will see you, Stephen, on some other episode.
That was good, Adam. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.